boys and girls, it's Mrs. Bartell. I'm here for Unit 1, Lesson 3 in math, in the math expressions. And we are going to be working on multiplication and arrays. That's a new vocabulary word for you. Before we actually get started on our math lesson, I want you to pause the video and get your student activity book, your SAB. There are some pages in there that we're not going to be really using right now for this specific lesson. So I want you to get that for me. Pause the video. Okay. Hopefully you have that book, and I want you to look at Student Activity Book page 11 all the way to 22, okay? In that book, from page 11 all the way to 22, pretty sure it's page 22, there are, well, maybe it's before, I don't know. I'm looking at something that says page 20. I didn't bring my book home, and I'm working and doing this from home, so bear with me. But in student activity book, oh, okay, it's pages 5 through, it says 5 through 12. It includes a signature sheet, a study sheet, and a family letter. So those are pages that we're not going to work on or do right now. I want to show you, I'm going to put my teacher manual under here. This is all I have to show you. One of the pages looks like this, and it looks like a signature sheet for mom and dad. I'm not going to have mom and dad do anything with that. I know in Miss Shaboya's class they always use this. I don't use it. So I don't do the program the way it was intended to do because I feel like, well, I'm not going to explain myself. I just don't. So you're not going to need that page. Remember, well, I was explaining to another student yesterday, do not tear out pages from your student activity book. If you were in class, I would be having you do that so you could take them home, but you're home. If you start tearing out pages, those pages will grow legs and the pages will run away. I'm not even kidding you. They will just run away and hide. They will disappear from you and you won't be able to find them. That's exactly what's going to happen. So don't tear the pages out. Hopefully you're laughing because pages really can't grow legs, right? And run away. But seriously, on the other hand, they really do, right? They just somehow magically disappear. So please don't tear those out. So you're not going to do anything with those pages. Now, there is something that looks like this. Let me make it bigger here. And this is a tool, it's a study sheet, that you can use to practice your count bys. And I can't make it any bigger, I apologize. The way that you would do this is to have a pencil or a finger, and you would cover up the answers and you would slide your finger down. So you would think to yourself, well, one group of 5, if I had one group and it had 5 in it, well, that's 5. And so you slide your finger down and you check, and sure enough, you're right. So these study sheets, you cover up the answers and you slowly move your finger down and you try to predict and figure out the answer. And by practicing like that, you will learn your count bys. The other thing I want to make really, really clear, and let me zoom out, is that God really did give you hands and fingers for counting. He really did. So when I do my count bys, I make sure my hands are empty, and then I can count by. So I'm going to just do 5s. 5, and I'm going to do it 6 times. I know there's 5 on one hand and one more is 6. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So if I had 6 groups with 5 in each, that's 30. So I want you to always practice your count bys. I heard from somebody the other day that said, oh, I didn't need to do that one because the answer was on another page and I just looked. Well, if you are copying answers from other pages and you're not practicing the count bys, you're not going to build a strong muscle in your brain. So you need to do that. You need to make your brain strong muscle. Okay, so today, I'm not going to talk about the checkups. I kind of did a little bit, the study guide, but the signature sheet, not using that, one thing I did want to mention though, in the homework and remembering, there's a blank box at the very top of some of the pages, and they call it a study plan, my study plan. And somebody was like, what's that, Mrs. Bartel? A study plan is like where you can write problems you're knowing you're having a hard time with. If you always can't remember 9 times 5, 9 groups of 5, or you always cannot remember 6 times 5, that's something you would write in the study plan just to make a note to yourself, to write it down, a note to yourself that is something you're struggling with. And then the further and further we get along in multiplication, the better off you'll be. All right, so you could also write your count bys in that study plan box. So if the lesson was working on 5s, you could write out all your 5s. You could write 5, 10, 15, 20. So you could write out your count bys in that study plan box. Okay, so now we're going to get into our lesson, and it's talking about an array. That's a vocabulary word. So I want to explain before I actually use the paper. I'm going to write some notes to myself. Array. So it's an arrangement of objects in rows and columns. And if you're looking in your student activity book on page 19, that's where it actually gives you the definition. Let me show you. Mine's not in color like yours. Mine's black and white. But it says that it's an arrangement of objects in rows and columns. So we were arranging things in circles before, or in groups. You can also arrange things in rows and columns and kind of make rectangles, okay? You can see that this is like a rectangle shape, okay? So rows are horizontal, okay? Rows are horizontal like the horizon. Columns go up and down. They're like pillars that hold up a building. And the way my mom taught me to remember the word column is that there's an L in it, and it goes up and down vertically like this, okay? So that's like a column. A column goes up and down, okay? So that's a little tip for the vocabulary. So if I'm going to just make a problem up right now. I'm going to make up 3 groups of 5. Remember, I'm circling the 5 because there's 5 in each group. So if I'm having 3 rows of 5, 3 rows of 5, there's 5 in each group. Okay, I can write this another way, 3 groups of 5. Rows of and groups of, very similar, okay? And they mean, that's kind of signifies multiplication, okay? Rows, the word rows or the word column, that signifies the word array, okay? So rows, columns, these are tied to this word. It tells you what type of a picture to make. You wouldn't be making circles and stars, okay? No, we're going to make rows and columns. So if I have 3 rows, the first thing I would do is number down. I would go 1, 2, 3, because I have 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows. I know that looks like it's in a column, but it's not, because this is the row, this is the row, this is the row. Okay? So in fact, I will draw kind of a rectangle for you, and then I'll show you that those are the 3 rows. Do you see that? That those are the 3 rows? Now, I'm saying that there's 5 in each. So I'm going to show you. I like to do this too. 1, 2, 3. So I can see I double checked I had 3. So now I'm saying there's 5 in each. So I have 1, 2. Notice I'm spacing them apart. 3. I'm trying to evenly space them apart. 4 and 5. 2, I already had 1, 3. Notice how I'm lining them up. Do you see this? I'm not putting this dot way over here. I'm lining it up underneath the one on top of it. Okay. Again, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now I can separate, and I can clearly see a column of 3, another column, another column, another column, and my final column. They should all be equal. This is probably too big, but that's not something I would normally worry about because it's not art class. It just needs to be approximately. So you can see you have 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows, and there's 5 in each row. And I'm going to check 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I like to label all the sides. In fact, you will be told a lot to label all the sides. So it's good to get in the practice of it now. So you can clearly see there's 3 in each column, right? There's 5 columns, okay? So if I was going to try to figure out how many this is all together, I could count 5, 10, 15. So 3 rows of 5 is 15. Now, since I'm talking about this, I want to double check that you are very clear that I am going to make you number your rows, and I am going to make you number your columns. So when you're drawing your own pictures, I'm going to be expecting that. And if we were in class together, we'd actually be using graph paper with little squares already built into it, and then we'd get some colored pencils out and outline and shade and stuff, but we won't be doing that right now. So right now we're going to be looking at student activity book page 19, okay? And we're going to be looking at the pictures that are arranged in rows and columns. And I'm actually going to do all of the problems with you. But what I'm going to ask you to do is on the even ones, before I start working on those, when I'm done with number 1, I want you to pause it and try to do number 2 before I start. I want you to pause the video, because if I'm doing all your work for you, you are not making your brain grow. To make your brain a powerful muscle, to make it very strong and to give it a workout, you have to do some of the work without me. So when I am saying to pause the video, I really want you to listen to me and do that and try to do some of the work independently. That means on your own. If you make a mistake, mistakes are good. Mistakes are powerful learning. If you do not make mistakes, you are not even growing your brain. Mistakes actually create a bigger, more powerful muscle because you can learn what you did wrong. And that's where all the synapses in your brain start firing and the muscle growth starts happening. We're going to watch some Class Dojo videos about the brain and how it grows and how powerful mistakes are and how good they are. You can't get frustrated. You can't cry because your brain's growing. So it might seem frustrating and you might feel like crying and you might get stressed out, but that's when you stop, you pause the video, you walk away, you do some mindful movements with Mojo, some mindful breathing, and then you come back and start fresh. Sometimes it may take 5 minutes for you to do mindful breathing. That's pretty long. Sometimes it might take maybe only a minute. Okay? So remember, we're going to label our rows and columns. Here we go. I'm going to start on number 1. I'm going to try to make this a little bit bigger. There we go. They want to know how many flowers. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to number my rows. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and I'm actually going to outline my rows because yes, I want you to. I want you to get used to this. You might have to pause the video to catch up if I'm going too fast. Now I'm going to number how many columns I have. Okay, I can see I have 3 rows. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to make a 3. And inside 3 rows of this symbol, times means right now it could be groups of, but right now it's rows. I have 3 rows of 4. I'm going to circle the 4. I want you to be thinking why I'm circling the 4. I'm hoping you're thinking because there are 4 in each row. Okay, so if I have to count, I know how to do my 3 count bys. 3, 6. So 3 and 3 is 6. Now some people might say, oh look, Mrs. Bartell, this is 6 and here is 6. And I know 6 and 6. So I'm going to sing my count bys. 3, 6, 9, 12. So that is 12. And Miss Shaboya and Mrs. Wall, they might want you to write the word flowers. I will let you write just that. 12, F. F stands for flowers. And we're done. Now I want you to pause the video and try to do number 2 on your own. Please do that. Okay, boys and girls, hopefully you paused the video like I asked and you tried to do number 2. The first thing you should have done was number your rows. And I can see I have 5 rows. So I'm going to put a 5 here. I'm going to put rows of symbol, which is multiplication. Now I'm going to count my columns, and I'm hoping you did this. If you did not, you need to pause the video and go back and number your rows and columns. So there are 6 in each column, and you should have that 6 circled because there are 6 in each row. There are 6, 6, 6, 6, and 6. Since these are so tight together, I'm not going to make you outline it and separate it. You won't really be able to see the lines if you do that. But I see 5 groups of 6, and I know I don't know how to sing by 6s yet. I haven't taught you that. But I know how to count by 5s, and I know that there's 5 here, 5 here, 5 here. So let's count by 5s 6 times. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Hopefully you knew that it was 30. And this is talking about stamps. So again, I wouldn't normally make you title that whole word out. I would let you write an S for stamps. All right, now we're on number 3. How many mugs? A mug is like what you drink hot cocoa out of. I want you to pause the video and I want you to number the rows and columns. And if you can, I want you to try to write the equation. Pause the video. Okay, boys and girls, hopefully you paused like I asked and you came back and you decided there were 3 rows. 3 rows. And I asked you also to number the columns. There are 7. And I'm circling my 7 because there's 7 in each. And I know for a fact, I know my 7 plus 7. And I'm hoping you know your 7 plus 7. It's 14. So if you know your 7 and your 7 is 14 and you count up the other 7, you should be able to find out how many mugs that is. And I'm going to actually count by 3s. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21. And I'm going to put an M for mugs. All right, write a math problem, write a problem. Now, we don't have our math journal with us, so you can just make your problem down below. Write a problem to show you can solve, or that you can solve using this array. Show how to solve your problem. I'm going to erase this 19 right here so I can make my story problem. Now, I'm going to warn you, when I write story problems, they always involve me. They always involve my name. I always start out, Mrs. Bartell. And they normally have the words M&Ms in there. And I'm going to tell you why I use M&Ms. Some people think it's because I like M&Ms. And I used to, but I don't eat them anymore. I don't care for them. But look at how easy M&Ms is to write. I'm lazy, guys, and that's super easy for me to write. That's how lazy I am. Now, I can tell you, a couple of years ago, I had a student named Daisy, and her favorite thing to write about in her story problems was frogs. Yes, she loved frogs. I had a boy who, he liked Pokemon cards, and his name was John. And when he would write his story problems, he would always talk about John, oh, that's himself, and his Pokemon cards, because that's what was important to him. So when you're writing a story problem, you probably might want to involve your name or your brother's name or somebody important to you and something that you or that person likes, okay? So they want us to write a problem that we can solve using this, what they've shown us. Well, we can do nothing until we number our rows and columns. So stop the video, pause the video, and number your rows and columns. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to put a 4. Where am I going to write a 4? I'm going to write a 4 over here so I remember. And then I'm going to number my columns. 1, 2, or my columns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ooh, 4 groups of 8, 4 rows of 8. So I have to write a story problem that talks about 4 rows with 8 in each row. And I already told you, my story problem is going to start and it's going to be all about me. Mrs. Bartell had 4 rows of M&Ms. Period. First sentence. Mrs. Bartell had 4 rows of M&Ms. Don't worry about your story problem quite yet. Now I'm going to have to say how many M&Ms are in each row. There were 8 M&Ms in each row. Period. And that row signifies that it's an array. Now I need to come up with a question. I had 4 rows, and in each row I have 8 M&Ms. I'm hoping you're thinking about what my question could be. because it's wanting me to write a story problem. Here's my question. How many M&Ms were there? Question mark dot. And over here I can say that there were 4 groups of 8, which equals, now I have 4. 4 and 4 is 8. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. 32 is the answer. Do you see how I solved it? Now, maybe you might write, Adrian had 4 rows of race cars. He put 8 race cars in each row. How many race cars were there? I don't know what your story problem is going to be, but you need to pause the video and you need to create one. Remember, you need to have 4 rows of something, and you need to have 8 of whatever it is in each row. And then you're probably going to ask, how many frogs were there? How many Post-its were there? How many flowers were there? Okay, pause the video and then come back and we will continue on. Okay, boys and girls, we are on the next page, comparing arrays. Now, when we hear the word compare, I want you to circle that word up there. I want you to think about how we would compare things. We use symbols. We use this symbol that means greater than. This one, greater than. This one means less than. And then this one means equal to. The reason this one means greater than, and it's faced this way, because you would be reading like a number. I'll put a number here. 7 is greater than 1. Okay, if I'm over here, the reason this says less than, I have an amount on this side of the symbol. Do you see my amount? It's 2. And 2 is less than, you can't say 1, you can't say 2. 2 is less than, you can make any number that's bigger than 2, right? 2 is less than 10. How about that? Then if I have a 5 over here, 5 is equal to, over here I could say 4 plus 1. It has to equal 5, right? They have to equal each other. All right, they want us to compare the arrays without counting the dots. Oh, this is tricky. They want us to compare without counting the dots. So you have to look over here and look here. And you can tell that this has, if I were to cover that up, I'm seeing 3 rows and 3 rows, but I'm seeing an extra one here, so this is greater. Last year, after we solved these, the kids went back and they numbered their rows and columns and they solved for each array. That is something you can do. All right, I'm going to do the odds, then I'm going to have you pause your video and do the evens on your own. So, I'm hoping you're understanding evens are your responsibility. When we meet in small group, I am going to ask you to show me your work, and your work needs to be complete. Not only are you going to be doing the student activity book pages, but generally you'll be doing the homework and remembering, except today's a 2-part lesson. So we're doing 1 part of lesson 3 today, and then the next part of lesson 3 will be the next day, if that makes sense. So after we're done with this page today, you don't have to do homework and remembering. You'll do that tomorrow or the next day. All right, so let's look here. I'm seeing 3 and 3, 4 and 4. I know it said not to count the dots. I think they mean the individual dots. But you can see that these have the same amount, so they're equal to each other. You can look at this and your brain should know which one is the greatest amount. And I can tell right here that is less than this amount. This amount's bigger. Remember, the mouth always eats the bigger number. Some people call that like an alligator mouth or a monster mouth. On number 11, your brain can tell already without counting that this is the greater amount over here, right? So that is greater. They want you on number 13 to draw 2 dot arrays and compare them using symbols. So you're going to draw something like this and compare them. So you are going to have to do that one on your own. You're going to have to pause the video. So what I want you to do is pause the video right now and then come back and we'll look at number 13 and all of the other problems. Okay, the first thing we'll do is look at number 6. And your brain should be able to tell that this is less. This is less than this over here. This is a little tricky. There are 2 rows, but your brain should be able to tell that this is significantly more. Well, not significantly, barely, right? It's only 2 more. So this is greater. Hopefully your brain knew that this one was greater. And hopefully your brain could recognize easily that this was less. So when you were drawing 2 dot arrays, I already told you I'm lazy. I admitted it. I admitted that I'm lazy. I would not have drawn something that took too many dots. That would be way too hard. I would have drawn something like this. Okay, I would have drawn that on one side. And then I would have drawn something like this on the other side. But do you see how that wasn't too much work? And then I can easily recognize that that is less. If I'm filling up this whole space with dots, I would be having way too hard of a time. All right, that's it for today's lesson. Hopefully you're remembering what rows and columns are. Rows are like the boat on the lake. They go horizontally. Row, row, row your boat. Okay, the boat on the lake is horizontally. Vertical is columns. That goes up and down. And the cheat sheet for that is that a column has an L in it. Okay, so when you hear the words rows or columns, that's signifying the multiplication array. Okay, it's the way you arrange items. Okay, that kind of helped me with the word array too. It's how you arrange. Okay, that's it for today's lesson. Make sure you have done all of the problems on page 19 and 20. Do not tear them out of your book, and then we'll be back the next day for the next part of our lesson.